So there were three main meditation teachers at Vajradaka in the 1980s, Kamalashila Vajradaka and Dharmananda, but they're very different styles, and I thought that there's something that there was more. You put the two of them together, and it was more than the sum of the parts. So there's kind of like a bit of a dynamic tension between the way that they worked. So Vajradaka, very much kind of very creative individual, very keep kind of working out how you bring, how you work in meditation based on his own experience. So that was one of his great strengths as a meditator, yeah. So it's many years later now, and I thought it'd be nice to interview Vajradaka in the same week that I've interviewed Kamalashila. So that we'll have that interview later on. I've pre-recorded it, so yeah. So after the meditation just ends, just click on the link on the Facebook page. Yeah, and then tomorrow he's going to lead a meditation. I'll do some body work. He leads the meditation. And then on Friday we've got Ma Prabha, who's ordained just before me, about 24 years ago. And Ma Prabha's a professor at the London Business School, so the order's full of all sorts of kind of people that do all sorts of things. It's not just people running Buddhist centres. It's like people who are working in retreat centres. People who are professors in business, and is an internationally respected kind of business leader, really, or business guru sort of thing, in a way. Yeah, so that's Friday. Okay, so we begin today with some body work as usual. So let's just do the Tai Chi, just swinging from side to side. And as always, just trying to have your mind and your body together, so one's not ahead of the other. So that your mind is following the movements of your arms and the shifting of the weight from one foot to another. So as you swing away from one side, maybe lift the ball of the foot up. Just find the rhythm. And if you're struggling a bit with it, don't worry about it. Don't make it overcomplicated. It's just you're just moving your body. And we're looking for something that the body will like, because it's bringing some more vitality, more energy into the body, which is what we need when we sit down to meditation. Maybe it's bringing a stretch as we swing round to each side. That side, the shoulder goes round a bit further and you get a stretch across the chest. It's all about our experience. Yeah, particularly our experience of our body. And if you feel yourself rushing a bit, just maybe slow down so that your mind and body can be together. If your mind's feeling a bit slow, slow your body down so you're together. Just having an attitude of patience, that things will work in their own time. The mind is useful for certain things, but it's only a part of our experience. So we're looking for a way in which our body can support our mind to feel calmer, more centered. So I can feel something happening now. The mind's calming down. The body's slowing down. Just coming to a standstill. And then put your hands on your hips and just rotating your shoulders. Involving your legs as well when you're doing this, so you're getting a stretch at the back of your legs as you lean forward, and then a stretch down the front of your torso as you lean backwards, and a stretch at the side as you lean to the side. Looking for the actual effect on your body. Of opening up and releasing of tension. And then just rub your hands together and give your face a bit of a wash. Brushing down arms, down your torso, down your legs. Then just shake everything out. Okay, and then take a seat for meditation. Okay, so we're going to do Metta Bhavana, loving kindness meditation this morning. So having moved to a new position of our body, it's getting used to a new position, being aware of the contact, what it feels like for your body to be touching the chair or the cushions, the ground. And allow your breathing to calm down. And being aware of your body, the fact that your body is a physical object in a physical world, and it has a structure to it, particular structure. So aligning your awareness with that structure, the fact that your body's got bones that support its weight, and muscles that move the body about, and organs that keep it alive. So tuning into the structure of your particular body, trying to be aware of where the bones are, where the organs are, where the muscles are. And we're looking for a situation where the mind and emotions don't need to be concerned with the body and what the body's doing. In fact, we're looking for a situation where they just feel supported by the body. So it's reflecting that the body knows how to sit down. It doesn't need any help from the mind to do that. It's quite happy just sitting here. And all you need to do is just look at the angle that your spine is making with the chair or the cushions, and trying to not be leaning over. So just look at the angle that your spine is making. Are you leaning slightly to one side or the other side, or backwards or forwards? Because if you are, you're going to need to be holding on that side, on one side, to hold your body up. So we're looking for a complete lack of any tension in the muscles. So if the body's balanced, the spine and skeleton is balanced, then the muscles of the body can feel confident that they don't need to be holding on. And relaxation is a physical thing. It's like unfurling a fist. So it's having a sense of unfurling any tension in the muscles of the body. Beginning at the crown of the head, just letting go of any holding on in the around the scalp and the brow, across the forehead, down the face, the jaw and the back of the neck, shoulders, down the back, between the ribs and the belly, and around the pelvis, in the big muscles of the thighs, down the arms and the hands, the lower legs and the feet. So we're going to be doing the Metta Bhavana or loving kindness meditation. So what we're looking for is to spend the time of the meditation to trying to move the degree to which our emotions are towards ourselves and others, just move them in a direction of being a bit warmer, a bit kinder. Wishing ourselves well. So metta or loving kindness is an emotion, and like any emotion it can be weak or strong. And in a way it's essentially a desire, it's wanting, really, wanting something for ourselves or others. So we can want something a little bit and we can want it a lot. And our emotions are conditioned like everything else. They're conditioned by how we feel at the moment. And they're also conditioned by our views. So the way that we see ourselves or the way that we see other people, other beings, conditions our emotions towards them. If we see them for what they are, as living beings who are sensitive to their experience, who don't want to suffer, who want to be happy and fulfilled, then it's likely that we will want to care for them because this is what they need. But if we see them as not as that, maybe as an object or something, it's an object in the world, two-dimensional object, then we're quite likely to have an emotion of indifference towards them. And this can be indifference towards ourselves and our lives and our happiness. Or if we see ourselves or others in a critical way, if our emotion is one of criticism, frustration or hostility, it's quite likely that our view of that person, ourselves or others, is that we are an object, but an object in our own way, or an object, another person that's an object in our way. But this isn't what we are, or other people are. So tuning into your emotion towards yourself at the moment. What is it? Do you feel a bit indifferent? Do you feel critical, a bit hostile? Or do you feel kind, caring, warm towards yourself? So just reflecting on where that emotion has come from. What view are you having about yourself at the moment? And whatever the view is, just try to shift it to be more in line with how things are. The Metta Bhavana. First stage, loving kindness towards ourselves. So just looking at what you want in relation to yourself. So do you want yourself to be doing better in terms of your career or status? And if you're not, if so, you might be being a bit critical towards yourself. Or do you want yourself to just be well on your own terms, irrespective of what you're doing or how successful you are? May I be well. So if your mind drifts off, just reminding yourself gently of what you're trying to do here. Look at your emotion towards yourself. And try and make it in line with what you really are. A human being who doesn't want to suffer, who wants to be well, to be happy, to be fulfilled, to have meaning in their lives. Just allowing that to be what you want. So just checking that you're still just letting your body just sit there and continuing to soften and release in the muscles of the body. As as your skeleton takes the weight down into the ground. Through being balanced. So now bringing to mind a good friend. Now giving some attention to our emotion towards our friend. What is it that we want in relation to our friend? So people are often our friends because we enjoy their company, and they're often maybe useful to us. You know, they have skills that we find helpful. So our wanting can be a little bit self-orientated. Maybe an object of pleasure for us and usefulness. But just asking ourselves, is this what they are, really? Isn't it more the case that our friend is an individual centre of experience who sometimes suffers, sometimes is well, who doesn't want to suffer? So shifting our view of them towards being more what they are. A human being in need of our care, our kindness, our support. May they be well. So just reminding ourselves of what we're doing, or looking at our emotion towards different sorts of people, ourselves, our friend, a neutral person, difficult person, the world. So now bringing to mind a neutral person, somebody who we see around, maybe they drive the bus or work in a shop. By definition, we feel neutral towards them, maybe we feel a bit indifferent towards them. Maybe we see them as a bit of an object. So just bearing this person in mind, and using our imagination to see how they have feelings, have hopes, have fears. And even though we may not be able to influence their lives very much, still allowing ourselves to want what's best for that person. Wishing them well. So now just checking that we're still allowing our body to just sit there, not using any tension to hold ourselves up. Our mind and emotions are not involved with our body. Our body is supporting them rather than the other way around. And just checking that we're still balanced so that the weight of the skeleton goes down. The skeleton isn't leaning over, so we don't need to hold on any side. And the muscles of the body can just unfurl any tension, just like unfurling a fist. Staying soft and relaxed. And then bringing to mind somebody that we have difficulty with. Somebody who, when we bring to mind, we experience some pain. And just noticing what our emotion is towards that person, what we want in relation to that person. So we probably want them to not be around, to be somewhere else. We may even want them to suffer. Just remembering that all things are conditioned by other things, so our emotion towards the difficult person is conditioned by our feeling, which is pain. But it's also conditioned by our view of them. So what is our view of the person, of the difficult person? Seeing clearly our view. So maybe our view is something like they're an object in our way. They're not giving us what we want out of life. But is it true that they are an object? Or is it true that they are a human being who doesn't want to suffer, who wants to be well and happy and live a meaningful and fulfilling life. So even though our experience of them is painful, we can still wish them well. We can still allow our view of what they really are to condition a response of care, of kindness, of well-wishing. May they be well. So we're not forcing anything here. We're just allowing our view of the person, our changed view of the person, to naturally condition a response of care, of kindness. We have to stop seeing them as an object in our way. May they be well. So in the fifth and final stage, we bring to mind all four people that we've used so far in the meditation. And we try to see how each and every one of them is not an object, but a human being. To an equal degree. are there for they're all therefore deserving of kindness, of care. In need of kindness, of care, of well-wishing. Trying to allow our desire for their happiness to be equal amongst all four. May they all be well. Not preferring any one to any other. And then bringing to mind other people near where you are, so people in the same building, in adjacent buildings, trying to see those people for what they really are. Human beings in need of care, of kindness, of consideration. And allowing that view of them to naturally bring about an emotion of care towards them. And keep expanding beyond those people to the wider world, your local town or city or village. May everybody in that town be well. And including not only human beings but other types of beings, animals and birds, fish, insects. Not seeing them as objects but as alive centres of experience who don't want to suffer. Who wish to be well, to be happy, to be fulfilled, who have a range of needs, so physical needs, needs for shelter, needs for social needs, needs for connection, health needs, and higher needs for self-actualization. May all beings be well. And just keep expanding out into the universe. Including all the people in your own country and in other countries around the world. Opening up to those who are suffering, feeling compassion for them, resonating with their suffering. Opening up to people who are doing well, rejoicing in their good fortune. Connecting to all beings everywhere. And wanting the best for them all. So on your own time, just bringing that meditation to a close. Okay, so welcome everybody to day 74 of Compassionate Response to COVID-19 with my buddy. So the last couple of days I've had Kamala Sheila on, so we got to hear about Kamala Sheila's life. And yesterday he led a meditation, and today I've got Vajradaka. So Vajradaka and Kamala Sheila were the two kind of main meditation teachers at Vajradaka when I first got involved, and in a way they were kind of sort of foils to each other. It's a really interesting kind of dynamic, you know. And Vajradaka brought a lot of kind of creativity to meditation teaching that was highly influential in the sort of early days of the FWO. So and now he lives in London, and he's still teaching meditation, teaching mindfulness and stuff. In a bit of a different way to before. But I want to. He was one of the very first order members, so I want to ask him about his early life. And well, actually, what was your background? You know, how your upbringing? What was that like?
I had a really happy family upbringing in an extended family, very easygoing, not much trauma or difficulty, no real signs ever of anger or anything like that. Cooking was great, people were friendly in the family. I grew up actually from the age of 10 in Queensway, which is just right near the West London Buddhist Centre.
Oh, really?
And it was enjoyable. And at a certain point, I realized that I didn't really want to just get caught up in regular jobs. So I went traveling and ended up in Japan when I was 19, 20 years old, and lived in a Zen temple complex for nearly a year and did a lot of meditation. I mean, it was a very heavy duty practice temple. Had a very famous Zen teacher called Uchiyama Sensei, very famous in Japan. And I did a lot of practice. When we did retreats, we were doing like 14 hours a day. And then when it was great. I really loved it. I mean, my knees hurt, but I really loved it.
What year was that then, Matt?
That was 69.
Right.
And then my time there ended, and I came back to London, and I really wanted to carry on my meditation. I moved into a shared house of people who were meditating in South London, of all different traditions. And I started going to a Thai Theravadan teacher. And so I got a job with Save the Children Fund, working with under fives, which was really interesting. Different kinds of situations with Save the Children Fund in London. Building adventure playgrounds, working on educational theory. And then I met, at 1971, I met the movement and Bhante, and started going to his classes. There was no centre then, and Bhante himself was leading classes in a rented place in Notting Hill when I first started getting
involved. That's Sangharakshita,
yeah. Yeah, Sangharakshita, yeah. He led everything, pretty much, and he and I started to be friends. I really enjoyed his company, and we talked about my experience both in Zen practice and Theravadan Buddhism, and he was really interested in what I had done. And then I went on a retreat, and I really liked it. And then during that autumn of 1971, he was leading a retreat every month, a weekend retreat, and I was doing that plus Zen weekends as well. And so I was really focused on my practice, and I loved my work for Save the Children Fund. And then come the winter, the new year, early 1972, well, the beginning of 1972, I asked Bhante to be ordained. Now, at that time, there were probably only about 6 active order members. So there was one order chapter meeting a week in London. And so there were 4 of us who asked for ordination at the same time. And he just said yes to me straight away. And he invited myself and the 3 others to join the order meeting. So we were going to the order meetings before we were ordained, which was great because we did all the visualization practices. We were doing study together. And it was just a wonderful introduction to a Mahayana approach to Buddhism and practice, actually. And then just a few months later, in April, the 4 of us were ordained on a retreat at Kefod's. And really quite soon after that, I was just really completely involved in helping the FWBO, as it was called then, to develop. I mean, Bhante really wanted to bring the Dharma to the West, and I just was right behind that, together with some of the others who were starting to emerge at that time. And things really switched for me when I had, through a contact that I had developed in Holland, asked Bhante if he would lead a retreat in Holland at the end of 72, and he said yes. And then right at the last minute, because of his feeling of wanting to be more reclusive, he decided not to do that and asked me to do it. Well, I hadn't really done any Dharma teaching or meditation teaching at that point.
Yeah.
But I said yes, and ended up leading a retreat for 40 people in Rotterdam, which was really the turning point for me. I really realized that I wanted to communicate and teach the Dharma rather than work more with children, so adults rather than children. And then shortly after that, I just got involved in teaching much more full-time at our new centre in Archway. And that's a background quite quickly into me being involved in Triratna.
Yeah. How old were you when you did that retreat then, roughly?
I was 22.
Yeah. This is what it was like in those days, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, Ben, I went, really? You think I could do that? And he said, yeah, I think you could do it. I went,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it."
Yeah. Well, in a way, he did the same in India, didn't he? He was like teaching. He was teaching at a really early age. Hundreds of people in India, or thousands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were involved in America at some point. How did
Well,
that
I mean,
work out?
yes, I was, but that was a bit later. Banty asked me to go to different places. So the first place he asked me to go to was Glasgow, actually. So quite soon, I can't remember the date exactly. It was 74, maybe. He asked me to go up to Glasgow, and I became chairman of Glasgow Centre. And then I went back to London, helped with and then I went to Helsinki, and I lived at the Helsinki Centre there for a while, and then did a long solitary, and then I went to London, helped with the LBC, and then I went to America with Manju Vajra and Punya, and we started in Boston around 81.
Right.
So by the time I went to America, I'd already been quite immersed. I'd been the overall convener of mitras for men and women before I went to America, so I was doing quite a lot already, teaching classes for the proto LBC as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I was involved in the Manchester building project where we converted a warehouse to the Manchester Buddhist Centre over 2 years, and it was it was hellish conditions,
Yeah,
what was it like for you?
Well, it was difficult for me because I didn't really have any practical skills, so I had to learn carpentry amongst other things from Attila, and it was tough, but I mean it was for a good cause, so I was really behind that, so it made it easier.
Yeah. So did you have some resistance to working physically or anything like that?
Not really. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the real problem was being thrown in the deep end. I think that within a week of being at Sukhavati, Attila had taught me how to make a fire door once, I think.
Yeah.
And then he left to do some work outside of Sukhavati to make money for the project. So I was left alone making fire doors after having just been shown how to do it once. I mean, it was a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
I mean, he had been so skilled, doing it, and I had, a hard time handling a hammer, So I really had to learn, and I think in the time he was away, I made quite a lot of the fire doors for all the community rooms. A lot of them were made in that time. Just me on my own, just struggling really with learning how, with measurements and cutting and nailing, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But it was difficult, but it was clearly important.
Yeah. Well, it's the same for me. I did plumbing and in Manchester Buddhist Centre. I'd never done any plumbing at all, and it's a source of great pride that it's never leaked in 25 years.
That's great. Yeah, I feel that. So it is pride, and of having done something really important. Sort of relatively works.
Yeah. So you went to America, and what did you do out there? The group of you?
Well, we started a centre in Boston, and it's always been very, very difficult to get a centre going in Boston. I mean, it was really in some ways a wrong choice, mostly my wrong choice, I would say. I thought it would be easier, but it wasn't. And after some years talking with Banti, we just decided that I would come back and move to Vajradaka. It was his suggestion. And when I moved, so I went from America to Vajradaka, which had been going for a few years. And it was a very interesting time. There was this sort of proto team of people who were interested in cultivating and developing teaching methods. And I mean, part of my perception was that we were having quite heavy-duty sessions and practice retreats, but people didn't know how to meditate. The instruction that they got at their centers didn't really serve them to do long 7-hour a day retreats, or more. So we decided as a team that we would start to have foundation courses. And that was really important for me, that, with the team developing approaches and ideas about how to have a nuanced and intelligent approach to how you meditated, how you practiced meditation and mindfulness in your everyday life. And that really, in a way, was a keynote for me, really developing teachings all the time that helped people understand what they were doing and why they were doing it. And that really continued all the 21 years that I was at Vajradaka.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being there from the late 80s onwards, and there was you would teach. There'd be a kind of particular kind of teaching, and I remember positive acceptance being one thing that you went into.
I mean, I felt. I mean, it was. I thought it was misunderstood by a lot of people at the time. I basically wanted a kind attitude to oneself when one was suffering. That was the basic idea.
Yeah.
But it was misunderstood as just accept yourself, which isn't what I meant at all.
Yeah. So you coming up with these ideas yourself out of your own experience? A
lot of it was coming out of my own experience. I think there was a certain point when the Dharmananda, who now lives in Australia, and I were the main team. Kamasila had moved away at that point down the road, the Blind Doll House, and Dharmananda and I, we augmented and complemented each other in our temperament and our approaches very, very well. We would explore and talk about things together a lot. And for me, that was a really wonderful time because, he was much more analytical and conceptual, as well as being in touch with his intuition as well and his feeling.
Yeah.
And so it really helped me tune my thinking, I think. It was really important. And between the two of us, we came up with lots and lots of ideas and new teachings all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time I came up with, they just was just coming out all the time. Really.
Yeah. I remember Piper, that was one of yours, wasn't it?
Well, I came up with Piper on a solitary retreat in Wales. I just came up with it and then brought it back and taught it. And it's still being taught in lots of centres all over the world. Yeah.
So what year was this then that Dharmananda was there?
Well, he was there, I think, from 85 onwards. So he arrived, 86 maybe. I can't remember exactly when he was there. If he was there before me. I think he might have been there before me. He was, actually.
Yeah, I've got a photograph, actually. I've got... So that's Dharmananda with a stripy thing, huh?
Bless him. That's me next to him.
And Kamala Sheila in his robes. Who's the other one?
Satyananda and then Kamala Sheila.
Right, yeah. What year was that, do you think, roughly?
Huh?
What year was that be about?
That was probably 85.
Yeah.
86, maybe.
Yeah. So I remember like seeing you and Kamala Sheila teaching, doing a course at on a weekend at Bodywise in East London in the early 90s, and it was like for meditation teachers and including mitras and stuff. And I went to that, and I was just like really impressed with both of you sitting there in full lotus position with big smiles on your faces, and it just made me want to be a meditation teacher. I thought, I want some of this, really.
We both love to meditate still, and we both, that love for meditation is at the core, I think, of what we do. But also, I think that the very fact that it was a meditation teachers workshop or retreat, so for helping people teach, we did that, and we did that together many times all over, and I continued as part of the team. We had these thing called the Vajradaka roadshow.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
We'd go all over the country. A few of us from Vajradaka.
Yeah.
And we would just teach, and then teach teachers as well, and then we included Germany in that as well, and Holland. So we were really trying to spread a more, nuanced approach to what the foundations of good practice are.
Yeah. I mean, I've been working a lot on trying to understand the four foundations of mindfulness more clearly. And have you focused on that quite a bit in the past?
I think that I in a way of, how can you say, there's always a reinterpretation of that. So that's always in the background. It always informs everything. But I think that one of the things that I'm coming to now, and I think that this is one of the things that I'll bring out a little bit or I am bringing out in my current teaching in centres at the moment, is this idea of you always have a clear understanding of what your area of engagement is and the theme of what you're doing. Sampajanya, a clear comprehension of purpose, and then you engage with that clearly. But that clear understanding of the area or the dimension or the sphere of what you're paying attention to can have different facets. Like it might be quite practical, or it might be more about just dealing with your mental states, dealing with negativity and engaging with positivity. Or it could be on a level of dharmic reflection, that you're aware that everything is happening is in the context of conditioned co-production. So that's a sort of, in a way, a referencing of the primary levels of mindfulness.
I know Theravada Buddhism talks about 4 levels of sampajanya, and the top one is complete non-delusion. It's like asamoha sampajanya. Yeah.
I mean, but with this approach that I just mentioned, it might be that, say, you're aware of your experience as constantly changing, and that is a theme for your mindfulness. Everything is changing and there's nothing fixed, including you. So that it references that non-delusional insight approach.
Yeah. So I remember you saying quite a lot about follow your bliss. It was a bit of a catchphrase that you had, you know.
You know, one of the things that I think is important about developing approaches to meditation and teaching is that it's relevant to the people who you're actually in touch with and engaged with.
Mm.
And there were, at that time, when the Follow Your Bliss teaching emerged, when I started talking about that, was that there were people who were very kind of hard and harsh in the way that they practiced. They were very ardent, but in a rather kind of laser-like, rather cold way.
Mm.
And it seemed to me at that time, those very sincere practitioners needed a little bit to be in a bit more touch with their joy.
Yeah, yeah.
And what aspect of enjoyment of their faith even, and their value of what they were doing. So the Follow Your Bliss was a response
contextual,
to the context.
Yeah.
And I think it worked at the time.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't seem so important now as it did then.
Yeah. In a way, the teachings are always contextual, aren't they? You know.
Exactly.
You know. Yeah. And do you want to say a bit about your relationship with Kamala Sheila? Your kind of working relationship, how that works?
I think we haven't actually done anything together for a really long time, so there's not a huge amount to say about that. We sort of work in parallel, sort of aware of what each other are doing, and I go to things that he leads, and still is obviously still very inspired teacher.
Mm.
What I could talk about to finish is more what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine, yeah.
So I tend to have two sort of avenues for my communication and my teaching. One is the movement. So I do and have always done things for centres. So I do things for West London, North London, and the LBC centres particularly. And sort of, as it were, not part of their teams, but as a sort of guest teacher. And I do things regularly with West London. At the moment, in our COVID times, I'm doing classes for them, every fifth week. And I recently did a workshop for the North London Centre. So the context there, of course, is Buddhist. And, that's an important part of what I want to do and what I do.
Mm.
But the other avenue is quite different. I mean, for the last more than 7 years, I've been teaching regularly for a big European bank every week, a lunchtime class. And there are people coming to that class now who started more than 7 years ago.
Mm.
We're just entering into our 8th year. And so there's this core, quite big core of people who are practicing regularly who don't even know that my name is Vajradaka.
Right.
But they love the mindfulness teaching and the meditation practice, and they've really taken it on for themselves.
Mm.
I'm just going to find my water. Where is it? And in the COVID times, and before, that teaching in what that you could call secular way has been expanded to other banks and other companies.
Mm.
So at the moment, for example, I'm teaching all over the world, every week. So, I mean, even this morning I was teaching for a big South African bank. And there are people in Johannesburg at the classes. And I really love it actually. We're working with the same principles, but not so much an obvious dharmic reference. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing. In a way, the two avenues, and the working with law companies, banks. People are really into it, and they respond very well to the underlying principle of working with mindfulness and all the ways that it's relevant to helping them, especially in these times.
Yeah.
So that brings us up to date, really, in what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, I imagine you're a really good fit, for that that world, because you've always just been drawing out from your own experience how to teach, and it's just that, it'll be kind of obvious to people hearing you how things work and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
It is a very obvious fit in a way, and it works.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thanks a lot, Vajradaka, for coming along, and
you're very welcome. It's always a pleasure to see you, Mahabodhi.
Yeah. So we'll finish there, and then tomorrow Vajradaka's going to lead us in a meditation. So, okay, that's it for now. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.